Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in a little bit more in depth on a great viewer question, and that is to discuss the female psychopath and how they throw others off center. I guess they were very intrigued by our recent series of videos on this, so we want to have a little bit of discussion on the cause that creates this effect and how they get sort of people off center, meaning off base, off of your regular train of thought, off of your regular routine, off of your regular sense of self. This becomes displaced and lost sort of outside of yourself as you engage in more interactions with them. I don't want to say a relationship because it's a very calculated, deliberate sort of manipulation that they will interweave and intertangle in relationships. Literally, and I don't want to say setting up a code, but a way that they want you to perceive things. So it's as if you're not able to see things through your own eyes. You are seeing things through the eyes of another. And we are talking about psychological concepts. We are not talking about schizophrenia. We are not talking about those affective disorders where people, have breaks of reality. We're talking about the effects of brainwashing and gaslighting with a manipulator known as a psychopath, a sociopath. We're not here to diagnose, treat, blame, whatever it is. We are talking about some of the very potent and powerful sort of put downs in way that they manipulate others through tactics that you might concern as charm or influencer or things of this nature. So, but the problem is there is lacking a wholesomeness here. There is lacking a conscience here. There is not here, but in a female psychopath, there's wholesomeness missing. There's a lack of continuity in their development of self missing. There is a sort of displacement of emotion for manipulation. So rather than being, caring, warm, affectionate, nurturing, protective, you really have the antithesis of this. You have the cold, calculating, uncaring, distant, manipulative, scheming sort of individual. And they oftentimes will scheme by mental games and emotional abuse, psychological abuse, and disordered sort of thought patterns and statements with which they sort of target people, and then they're sort of trying to constantly make a point. It might be something that they're trying to subtly thread through from a week ago, from a month ago, from 6 months ago. There's this sort of interweaving, if you will, almost like a spider web, but much more chaotic with many more levels that ain't a pretty trap to find yourself engaged in with this type of individual who engages in this sort of taking others down approach to their relationship, knocking people off center, meaning your I am, your strengths, how you would like to be treated. But they sort of understand this, that they will learn and suss you out and size you up long enough with what I would consider like an X-ray vision. And people who are hearing this, who have not encountered this type of individual, it might sound like psychotic talk or separation or detachment from reality. We are not talking about that. We're talking about people who use mind control, manipulation, neuro-linguistic programming, much like you would see akin or in line with a cult. So people who have ever, heard about a cult. Have you ever heard about a cult and these different things? So the people were under a sort of gaslighting and brainwashing, correct? So it's a similar experience, but you are not in a big cult. You are not in a big clan. You're sort of really at the beck and call of this sort of manipulator because they have figured out the game, the operating principles to getting in and really ruining people's psyche, their ability to think, connect with their emotions, connect with others, do what is right, have pride and principle, have integrity, have self-esteem and a sense of moral compass and moral direction, i.e., this is what is right. Yeah, it might be a lot easier to do what is wrong, but, so some people might find themselves backsliding with these individuals who convince them or connive them, just do this, it's easier, you'll get this, whatever, to do what is wrong. We are talking really about someone who has a desire to throw people off center, off balance, off perspective, and get them sort of disoriented because it makes them not only easier to manipulate, but easier for them to then reinforce, and basically helps them to help you help them, if you understand what I'm talking about. So a lot of people have this sort of problem that they feel a really inextricable attachment or addiction to these individuals, and they want to then appease their center, which now becomes off center in them. So this person basically rules and runs their life and manages their life basically by proxy, is what ends up happening. Once again, some men might find this an extraordinary relief because they don't have to do all the work. Here's someone who wants to take control. Here's someone who is strong and assertive. Here's a go-getter. Here's a whippersnapper. Here's my knight, whatever you call her. I mean, did you, of course, have some terms of endearment? And no doubt this person has had some good and positive influence in your life. We are not talking about all good and all bad. You definitely have to be able to receive and accept the experience and detach from the fear, particularly an intimidation that is oftentimes inoculated or insinuated and driven in the discourse with this type of individual, meaning the inroads that they make into your heart, into your gut, into your thought process is one of design. It's one of, a real driven sort of it's a very driven pinpoint that they will focus on. And we talk about the psychopathic gaze, the looks that could kill, the looks that could pierce, see right through me. I got a cold chill. This didn't feel right all of a sudden. I mean, this is your spider sense. This is your sixth sense. This is your gut instinct. Maybe you're not in touch with this. Maybe your gut instinct hasn't been your best buddy. Well, it's time that you make your gut instinct your best buddy and make friends with patience and make friends with accepting, what happened and who you are, and do you embrace truth or do you embrace, a pathological lying relationship that causes you to be off center? Because when they can do that, they're basically opening up a Pandora's box so that they can get in, and if they can control you by giving you orders, by giving you commands, by taking down your identity, by never talking to you by your name, by calling you nicknames all the time, so you don't realize that it is depersonalizing you to an identity, that which you call me, I, here I am, this is me, this is... Okay, so this ends up being hollowed out, meaning made null and void, meaning made just through the vacuum of the interactions. This is in a calculated way made to be non-engaged in. It's like the use it or lose it. If you don't connect with your gut instinct, then you are cutting yourself off from your gut instinct. So you're cutting yourself off from your heart, your intuition, your sixth sense, your higher order thinking, which your higher order thinking is, it is just that. It is what Freud might call the super ego. It is that which is really of the higher order. It is principle based. It is conscience based, right or wrong, morality. It is your higher self. In other words, take the high road, take the right way. And oftentimes this can be very strict. This can be very highly moralistic, and oftentimes very rigid. And then it's counterbalanced, of course, with the id, which is the childish, impulsive side, and then regulated by the ego, which is who you consider yourself are. And this is a sort of experience of polar opposites that you experience in life. And so it's the ego is that sort of judgment-based that gets caught up in a competition with the female psychopath to retain your I am. So people become more egotistical. What they might feel that they're self-actualizing, but they're actually getting disconnected from what is right, best, what's meant to be. But also, you kind of swoop around, circle back, and you end up really connecting in the right place after you come through the other side of this sort of disoriented relationship or experience. It is not a relationship. It is at the helm of someone who is seeking to a means to an end, which oftentimes is not in your best interest. We are just hitting on some very basic points that you need to drill again and again and again and again. Just like all the great basketball coaches, practice the basics. Any of the great coaches, I can't think of them right now, but they will always drill their team on the basics. Even if you've been in the sport, you're a pro, a champion, you're a Michael Jordan, you're a Scottie Pippen, you're a Magic Johnson, you are practicing the basics and getting them again and again. So namely, problematic is that it is not in your best interest and oftentimes not founded on truth and honesty and what is right. And, what is right is really easier to embrace and a lot more stress-free than embracing the pathological and the lie. And so what ends up happening, though, is then that they are trying to hollow out and then plant seeds so that you can better serve them. Let me get this dynamic right for you. They will support you to the degree to which you can better help you to help them. So in other words, if they can give you information, if they can be there for you in your time of need or be there in certain areas of the relationship so that they can plant more seeds so that they can harvest and get more. Do you see what I'm saying? So in other words, they'll really plant and strip the earth, scorch the earth. So in other words, if they can replant, in other words, they'll work the fields. I guess I'm just going to use a seed analogy. But if they can plant seeds so that they can harvest, and then they're giving you tips on how to farm or help your life so it can create a better harvest, but it's for them, it ends up being really lopsided, and it'll cause you to become off-center and then try to appease the center, which then becomes outside of you, which then becomes trying to pacify or appease them, either to keep them happy, stop them from raging, stopping them from a narcissistic injury, stop them from further manipulating you, or whatever it is that they are doing that ends up creating an emotional abusive cycle in a relationship, which oftentimes just keeps going and going and going. Meaning, they work the pattern. This is how they are, and most people are not prepared for this type of pattern when they enter in the relationship. They think they know what they're dealing with. They think that they have got this. This is just a willy-nilly or a silly Sally or whatever it is that you want to call these people, or maybe, this is just a tough girl, a tough guy, a bad girl, a bad guy. whatever you want to talk, those terms of endearment. So you might have sort of explained them away there before, but yet there is something for you to really pull back the reins. Oftentimes you might have not done that because of embarrassment, or because you didn't want to say no to them for fear of the outcome, or fear of their retaliation or their rejection. So it oftentimes then displaces what is in your best interest for what appeases them and keeps them, it's just like feeding the tiger. I guess you would do it. Please don't take my arm. Here's a big swath of meat. I mean, basically so that they can gnaw on whatever it is and then not come back to bite you, because they will kind of come back to do that. And with that, it becomes very important for you to then reestablish a foundation. It becomes very important for you to reestablish a foundation. And it is okay that if this feels different, or you feel like you've come down from a great escapade of your life, maybe this is very anticlimactic, maybe this is very lonely, maybe this is very sad, maybe this gives you a lot of grief, maybe this gives you a lot of anger. You might have one or all of these feelings at some point. The main thing is that you sort of pull them together like a flower bouquet and change them and alchemize them into the positive, that you transform and transmute. In other words, you're willing to let go all of the negative that surrounds these experiences. And to realize that it's important that you do that, because it's only creating a toxicity in your life and not anything to do with their life. So you end up only making your own life worse, your own life more unhappy, because you're still carrying the baton, if you will. You're still carrying on the legacy of the hurt. It becomes your identity. This and this happened to me. This is my story. This is the chapter of my life. This is why I never went anywhere. This is why I never did anything. You might have these chapters. It might be very scenic. It might be very gory. It might be very intense read. Yes, but coming through the other side is where we are about here. And the good news is, yes, the other side is there for you, and it is within, but you have to be able to sort through and comb through, and namely understand the cause that has created this effect for that off-centering to be. And so it's like, if you're always looking at something that is off-center, eventually you're going to try to tilt to make it more comfortable. So people end up getting, tilting their own sense of reality or rationality or decision making, or, making a judgment call, which will become oftentimes very problematic or not under ideal circumstances. And people then lose oftentimes the certain part of them where they can feel good about retreating to come to a solution or answer, your own private space, your own time, your place to think, your time to reconnect with yourself. This whole experience does not really get, I would say, lit up. And oftentimes people then are used to then engaging in with this off-center. And it becomes more important then to please this person rather than take care of yourself. So this becomes really another landmark of where things go awry. This is when the bend in the road, you should have kept going right, and you go, nope, let me take that scenic route down the ravine and to the left. And it's slippery, it's okay, I can bounce back. I can always bounce back. You might have this youthfulness. I remember in our English class, there was some big talk about what does buoyancy mean? I mean, in a literature class, studying English literature from the 1800s, and your Edgar Poe and your Walden Pons and all these good classics, as if you will. And it's really interesting, to see this sort of unravel and understand that there is a lot of intensity to be understood in what it means to get back your center and to get back that I am, and not to have that watered down or made as a non sort of revisited place. So oftentimes people don't know how to come back, and that's really important. That you realize, where some of these decision makings went, when these decisions went off. In other words, where did you, take the slippery slope instead of get your cleats on and get some traction and going, this isn't not going to turn out well. People's wheels begin spinning too quickly. They don't have anyone to talk to about it. They think that they're just on automatic pilot. Oftentimes because they've been reinforced by this person to behave and live and have a lifestyle in that manner. Until you really need to bring it to light for yourself, and then really become relaxed in the fact that you're able to bring it to light and to detach from the fear of what is the right thing to do in this situation, to look at it all and its completeness. I mean, if you're carrying around still a lot of fear and anger and a lot of these negative situations that are still anchored from the past, you're really only holding yourself back. I mean, you're only doing that to yourself. You're allowing yourself to sort of be emotionally abused by proxy. So you have to realize you're the one who has to take the key and undo your own self from the shackles that you have put yourself into, really in a psychological state, with an image, with a self-limiting belief system, which keeps it in place. So if part of that is factored in, you are now operating in, things will never get better for me. I will never be more intelligent. I can't learn any. If you're talking, if this has become your self-talk as a result of this, then you're talking yourself down, and you're basically allowing the toxicity just to flow right into your life. I mean, you're basically just saying, keep the toxic coming until you go, wow, I really don't want to be drinking from this toxic spigot anymore. I desire something more wholesome, more sustainable, and something based on truth and reality that is not fear and manipulation based, which is like you're based on you are not good enough or you're not sly enough to get me. So really the way to deal with it is to not deal with it. The way to deal with it is to say, I am not playing this anymore. Here's my cards, here's my chips, here's my pieces, here's my keys, whatever it is, that whole lifestyle, you have to be willing to give it all up, to let it go, and to feel safe and positive in your decision. Meaning, I embrace my decision, that I feel safe and correct doing this. I can now, recall and come to a peaceful body that is not on high alert, that is not on cortisol stress, that is not on adrenals and, all the other neurohormones, what have you, that are your stress hormones. You're not causing those to be secreted by anxiety and always wondering about this, trepidatious or dangerous ground, which really just becomes what you feel is a foundation for your life. But good news is that does not have to be the foundation of your life. It is okay for people to be different. It's okay for people to have a different lifestyle. It's okay for people to have a different value system. It's okay to not agree with people. It's okay that you find people disagreeable. It's okay that you don't like to be manipulated. It's okay that you don't like to live a lie. It's okay that you don't like to be scapegoated and targeted. It's okay that you don't like to be victimized. You might have thought it was endearing. Oh, isn't it me? I'm a poor, pitiful me. Yeah, and then you get into the self-talk, or yeah, I'm just some dum-dum, or whatever. And then just keep me in the dark. I mean, how, do you enjoy it there? Then leave. then if you are not happy, you must trust and keep the faith and know that what you seek you will find. So if you have not practiced, ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, it's about time for you to practice and get some new emotional habits going on for yourself and practicing these consistently and frequently. Even if you make small steps eventually, create a big step. So don't be fooled by the fact that you have to have these big, hairy, audacious goals. I'm going to find a person, buy a house, pay it off in 5 years, and go to the moon and Mars and take off on a Tesla. I mean, what is your... You don't need to have that level of fantasy life or agitation and that whole, buzz level. Oftentimes you might have felt with this psychopathic type of individual, which oftentimes was that because it was a lie. I mean, they literally con, deceive, scam, scheme, all those things. It is a real situation. And oftentimes you did not see it coming, and this person was not looking out for your best interest, so your best interest was not served. We're just talking about this straightforward. I want you to make this simple. So if you are confused or unhappy and still feeling this angst, clear out all the remnants of the influences. Get it out. If you have a uncomfortable feeling, get it out. Be willing to part with the sadness. Be willing to part with the fear. Be willing to part with the anger. Be willing to part with the resentment. What happens if you part, with these old bedfellows, kick him out of the bed? I don't want this around here anymore. I mean, you literally have to make that declaration. You literally have to understand. If you've been engaged in this for a long period of time, don't worry about it. Oftentimes, I feel people get a big payoff from being depressed, from being angry, from being down and out. They're having a pity party. They're having a anger free-for-all. They're just being irresponsible and belligerent, So you have to realize that you grow, and with time, you refine and mature, but, time is your greatest commodity. So pay attention. I hope some of these words understand and connect with you and resonate with you. And so that you can purposely put back the right details in your life. Oftentimes with a female psychopath, very important details that you need to remember to have a positive interaction. It is all about the positive. The negative way outweighs and the harm way outweighs the positive. So it's not to say you are not going to have some positive, maybe some great positive results of a relationship with this person. Don't let that steer you from the light. You own who you are in your decision making. And you oftentimes did not request for all this to be dealt with, and you didn't oftentimes know how to attach. It's like having an engine problem and you don't even have a box of tools. So how could you fix it if you don't have the tools? So that's why we're discussing the tools here with you. And realize that you have to come to an about like a 360. That's really what the recovery is. And realizing that you are safe to let go of the trauma bond. It's okay, and once you grow and mature in yourself and have enough, self-reliance and self-autonomy and self-sustaining, you'll realize that you want a life that is sustainable and you can do it. You'll get your confidence, your I am, and your strength back. This will be coursing through your life like a golden river. I mean, you just have to allow. But oftentimes people are too afraid because maybe it triggers them for some reason, and then they feel, I don't ever am going to enjoy life again. I mean, they might have had these big statements that you sung out at the top of your lungs or cried out at the top of your lungs, but don't be afraid to go through a new leg of your journey. Instead of going through the prickly forest, why don't you have a chance to sit down in the rock and, look at the beautiful meadow and enjoy the birds and feel the sun? Why don't you have a different experience now in your journey of life while you have the chance, while you have the opportunity? You must acknowledge and validate this to liberate and free yourself to a better life. This is your buddy. Peace and harmony with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and for goodness sake, please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace out, peace in, peace be with you, and have a beautiful evening.